The Yadaran interrogator cracked his knuckles, sneering down at the captive human. He would break this puny earthling and claim his planet for the Yadaran Empire. But he was about to learn the hard way. He had messed with the wrong species. Commander Pixis stalked through the brig of the Yadaran dreadnought, his boots clanking on the metal deck. Row after row of cells held the remnants of once proud civilizations, all crushed beneath the Yadaran onslaught. But today, a new prisoner awaited. A human. The first human captured alive, his entire crew slaughtered in an ambush, leaving him the sole survivor. The last of his kind the Yadarans had encountered. Pixis stopped outside the cell holding this Billy Russell. He looked unimpressive, a small, fragile thing with pale skin and watery eyes. Nothing like a Yadaran warrior. Humanity's homeworld would soon fall, Pixis mused. Their technology was primitive, their defenses feeble. But first, this human would divulge the coordinates of Earth and then watch as his species burned. It will be easier if you cooperate, Pixis said. Tell me the location of your planet and your death will be quick. Resist, and you will suffer as none of your kind can imagine. The human just glared at him. Go to hell. So it would be torture then. No matter. The Yadarans had broken far greater species than this. The interrogation began. Hours turned to days. Pixis employed every technique in the Yadaran playbook. Physical torment, sensory deprivation, chemical injections, telepathic probes ripping into the human's mind. Through it all, Billy Russell remained defiant, never breaking, never betraying his world. Pixis grew frustrated. What gave this lowly creature such resolve? He was just one human, facing the might of an empire that had ravaged 1,000 worlds. While Billy suffered, he used his time to study his captors. He noticed their immense arrogance, their dismissal of lesser species. They thought themselves invincible, underestimating the strength of human will. It would be their undoing, Billy vowed. This cage could not hold him forever. He would find a way to strike back and stop the Yadarans, even if he had to do it alone. Earth would not fall, not on his watch. Tensions grew as the Yadaran warship voyaged toward the solar system, a massive invasion fleet at its back. Time was running out for humanity. But then came whispers of a plot among the other slaves, whispers of a brewing rebellion, awaiting a leader to unite them. Someone clever and bold enough to engineer their escape and bring the fight to the Yadarans. Mankind's fate hung in the balance. The stage was set for a battle that would echo through the ages, as one human stood against an empire and proved they had messed with the wrong species. In the shadows of the dimly lit brig, Billy moved from cell to cell, his whispers carrying the spark of rebellion. He sought out those with the skills and spirit to fight back against their Yadaran oppressors. Xyloth, a spindly alien with a brilliant mind, caught Billy's eye. "You've seen their technology, haven't you?" Billy asked. "Could you hack it? Give us control?" Xyloth's hands trembled, but he nodded. I think so, but it's risky." "What have we got to lose?" a gruff voice interjected. It was Grak, a hulking warrior with battle scars crisscrossing his leathery hide. "I'll fight those bastards tooth and nail." Vox, a lithe figure with keen, darting eyes, melted out of the shadows. "I can map their patrols, find their weak points," he hissed. In clandestine meetings, huddled in the darkest corners of their cells, Billy laid out his daring plan. Grak pounded his fists together, eager for battle. Xyloth wrung his hands, but a glimmer of hope sparked in his eyes. Vox grinned, relishing the chance to outwit their captors. Billy stoked the flames of their resentment and hunger for freedom. The Yadarans think they've already won. That arrogance will be their undoing. Are you with me? One by one, they nodded. A ragtag band of rebels, united by desperate hope and an unbreakable human will. But even as they plotted, Billy was dragged away to face Commander Pixis's ruthless interrogations again and again. He endured searing pain and shattering mind probes, sifting through his agony for scraps of intel about Yadaran plans and the ship's layout. Each scrap of information was a weapon in the coming fight. One day, as the guards hauled Billy's battered body back to his cell, he saw his chance. He lurched sideways, knocking one guard off balance. Snarling, Billy grappled with them, his battered muscles surging with adrenaline. Fists flew and armor clattered. Though the guards were armed and better trained, Billy fought with savage desperation. A timely blow left the guards stunned on the floor. Snatching their keycard and weapons, Billy raced through the cell block, unlocking doors and bellowing the call to arms. "Now! We fight now!" Grak burst from his cell, roaring a battle cry. Vox and Xyloth darted past to fulfill their roles. Other prisoners surged out, eager to join the fray. Klaxons blared and boots hammered on decks as the Yatarans rushed to quell the sudden uprising. The first wave fell upon the rebels, shock battens crackling. But the rebels fought back with brutal efficiency. Grak waded into the melee, his makeshift club smashing Yataran skulls and his fists crumpling armor. Prisoners grappled with guards, tearing guns from their hands to turn on their oppressors. On the bridge, Commander Pixis snarled in rage as chaos spread through his ship. He drew his plasma blade, vowing to gut the human filth responsible for this outrage. Meanwhile, Xyloth's fingers flew over the control panels, alarms screeching as he overrode security systems and sealed bulkhead doors to trap Yataran teams. Vox snuck down hallways, planting explosives and severing power lines to sow confusion and panic. Billy armed his growing force with fallen Yataran weapons, leading the charge deck by deck to seize control of the warship. Plasma bolts seared the air, and screams of pain mingled with war cries. The once sterile corridors became a hellish battleground. Then Billy stormed onto the bridge, and all fell silent as he faced Commander Pixis. The Yataran's eyes blazed with hate. "You dare defy us?" Billy raised his stolen plasma rifle. "We humans dare a lot of things." With a snarl, Pixis lunged and their fierce duel began. They traded vicious blows as the battle for the ship raged around them, a microcosm of the war for Earth itself. Plasma blade clashed on rifle butt, and bones crunched under brutal strikes. The rebel prisoners fought with unmatched ferocity, fueled by the chance to seize their freedom at long last. But the ship was only the first small step. Beyond it waited the rest of the Yataran fleet, poised to rain down destruction on humanity's homeworld. There could be no falling back, no turning away from this daring plan. Here, in this moment, Bob and his ragtag resistance had to triumph. Earth's fate depended on it. The clash of metal on metal rang out as Billy's makeshift club smashed into Commander Pixis's plasma blade. The Yataran's eyes widened in shock as the human pressed forward, fueled by rage and desperation. With a final brutal swing, Billy knocked the weapon from Pixis's grasp and tackled him to the ground. "It's over," Billy snarled, pressing his knee into the commander's back as he wrenched Pixis's arms behind him. "Your ship is ours now." All around the bridge, the sounds of combat died away as the last pockets of Yataran resistance were subdued. Grak lumbered over, his massive frame dwarfing the other combatants. "We've secured engineering and the main weapon systems," he reported gruffly. "What now, human?" Billy hauled Pixis to his feet, keeping a firm grip on the commander's arms. "Now we make sure this ship stays ours. Xyloth." The spindly alien scurried over from where he'd been examining a control panel. "Yes? I need you to lock down our defenses. Seal off any sections the Yatarans still control, and make sure they can't retake critical systems." Xyloth nodded, his fingers already flying across the nearest console. "I'm on it. I'll have us fortress in no time." "Good." Billy turned to Grak. "Round up anyone who can fight. We need to get them combat ready fast. The rest of the Yataran fleet won't ignore us for long." As his rebel force scrambled to secure their prize, Billy dragged Pixis to the captain's chair and shoved him down. The Yataran's face twisted with impotent fury. "You think you've won?" he spat. "You're nothing but vermin. The might of the Yataran Empire will crush you and your pathetic planet." Billy leaned in close, his voice low and dangerous. You underestimated us, Pixis. That was your first mistake. Now you're going to tell me everything I need to know to stop your invasion. Pixis sneered. I'll die before I betray the Empire. We'll see about that. Billy straightened up, his mind racing. One ship against an armada. The odds were impossible. Unless... There has to be a way to cripple your fleet, he mused aloud. Some central weak point we can exploit. A flicker of fear passed across Pixis's face, there and gone in an instant. But Billy caught it. What is it? He pressed. What are you hiding? Pixis remained stubbornly silent, but Billy's mind was already putting the pieces together. A command center, he realized. Something that coordinates your entire invasion force. He grabbed Pixis by the front of his uniform. Where is it? Tell me! The Yadarin's drive crumbled in the face of Billy's intensity. The Nexus Station, he gasped out. It houses the AI that controls our fleet, but you'll never reach it. It's too well guarded. Billy released him, a grim smile spreading across his face. We'll see about that. He turned to address his motley crew. Listen up. We've got a new mission. We're going to hit the Yadarins where it hurts most. Who's with me? A chorus of cheers answered him. Billy nodded, drive blazing in his eyes. All right. Xyloth, Grak, Vox, you're with me. We're going to infiltrate that command nexus and bring it down. The rest of you, hold this ship at all costs. As they prepared for their bold strategy, Billy knew the odds were stacked against them. But he'd already beaten those odds once. With Earth's fate hanging in the balance, he'd do it again or die trying. The captured Yadarin warship slipped silently through space, cloaking technology masking its approach. On the bridge, Billy and his hand-picked team made final preparations. Remember, Billy said, checking his stolen plasma rifle, we go in fast and quiet, hit them before they know what's happening. Xyloth nodded nervously, clutching a datapad. I've analyzed their security protocols. Once we're inside, I should be able to breach their systems. Good, Billy replied. Vox, you're on point. Get us to that central core. The lithe alien grinned, twirling a knife. Leave it to me, boss. As they neared the massive space station, Billy felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. This was it. Their one shot at saving Earth. Docking in 3, Grak rumbled from the pilot's seat. 2, 1. With a muffled clang, they latched onto the station's hull. Billy took a deep breath. Let's go. Billy's heart raced as the commandeered Yadarin warship breached Earth's atmosphere. Through the view screen, he saw a swarm of human fighters escorting them to a sprawling military base. As they touched down, Billy turned to his ragtag crew. We did it. We're home. The moment the airlock hissed open, they were swarmed by cheering soldiers and civilians. Billy stumbled down the ramp, overwhelmed by the thunderous applause. A gruff general stepped forward, saluting crisply. Welcome back, son. You've given us a fighting chance. But the celebration was short-lived. Within hours, Billy found himself in a sterile briefing room, facing grim-faced military and political leaders. He recounted every detail of his ordeal, the Yadarin interrogation techniques, their weapons capabilities, the layout of their ships. Their arrogance is their weakness, Billy explained. They're so convinced of their superiority, they overlook obvious flaws in their strategy. As he spoke, technicians were already swarming over the captured Yadarin vessel. In a nearby hangar, Xyloth hunched over a dissected alien engine, muttering excitedly to a team of human engineers. If we can replicate this plasma containment field, he chittered, your ships will be nearly invulnerable. Meanwhile, Vox put a group of Earth's toughest soldiers through their paces. No, no, he hissed. You must strike here, where their armor is weakest, like this. He demonstrated a lightning-fast series of blows that left his sparring partner gasping on the mat. Across the globe, factories retooled for war production. Orbital shipyards buzzed with activity as Earth's first true battleships took shape. Every scrap of Yadarin tech was analyzed, reverse-engineered, and improved upon. But even as humanity prepared, a new shadow loomed. Billy pored over intercepted transmissions, his blood running cold. "The Erebians," he whispered. "They're coming." In an emergency session of the newly formed Earth Defense Council, Billy laid out the terrifying truth. The Yatarans were just the vanguard. These Erebians, they're on a whole other level. We need to be ready for anything. As the council debated strategy, Billy's mind raced. He thought of all the aliens he'd met during his captivity, species who had suffered under Yataran and Erebian oppression. An idea formed. "We can't face this alone," he said, silencing the room. "We need allies. I propose we form a coalition, the Allied Species Resistance. Together, we might stand a chance." The council members exchanged looks. It was unprecedented, but these were unprecedented times. "Do it," the president ordered, "and you'll lead it, Russell. You've earned that right." Billy nodded, feeling the weight of galaxies on his shoulders. As he left the chamber, he saw Grak and Xyloth waiting. "Well," Grak rumbled, "what's the plan, boss?" Billy managed a grim smile. "We've got work to do. The real fight is just beginning." The command center buzzed with activity as Billy Russell strode through the sliding doors. Screens flickered with tactical displays, and the air hummed with urgent conversations. Status report," Billy barked, his eyes scanning the room. A human officer snapped to attention. "Sir, integration of Grak's warriors into our ground forces is proceeding ahead of schedule. Their strength and resilience are proving invaluable in close-quarters combat drills." Billy nodded, turning to Vox. The lithe alien stood before a holographic star map, gesturing to a cluster of blinking lights. "Our joint squadrons are mastering the pincer maneuver I developed," Vox explained. "Human pilots provide the speed, while Xyloth's people handle the complex navigational calculations. It's a devastating combination." "Good," Billy said. "We'll need every advantage we can get." He moved to a workstation where Xyloth hunched over a dissected Yataran weapon. The alien's multiple eyes darted between the device and a screen filled with scrolling equations. "Progress?" Billy asked. Xyloth chittered excitedly. "We've cracked their shield modulation algorithms. Give me another week, and we'll have a countermeasure that can punch right through their defenses." A warning klaxon cut through the air. Billy rushed to the main view screen as it lit up with a sea of red dots. "Yataran fleet detected," an officer shouted. "Multiple capital ships, closing fast." Billy's eyes hardened. "They're here sooner than we expected. Xyloth, how long until our new weapons are online?" "Not soon enough," the alien replied grimly. Billy surveyed the room, meeting the eyes of humans and aliens alike. "Then we do this the hard way. Prep all squadrons for immediate launch. We're going to hit them before they can get into position." As the command center erupted into frenzied activity, Billy grabbed his flight suit. He turned to Grak, who stood ready at his side. "You sure about this?" the massive alien rumbled. "It's a big risk." Billy nodded, his face set with fierce intensity. "Sometimes you have to roll the dice. Let's show these Yataran bastards what happens when you back humanity into a corner." Minutes later, Billy's strike force rocketed into the inky void of space. A swarm of Earth's finest pilots flew alongside exotic alien craft, united in their desperate mission. "Remember the plan," Billy's voice crackled over the comm. "We punch through their outer defenses with our stolen codes, then hit their command and control with the EMP. Stay tight, stay focused." The Yataran armada loomed ahead, a wall of gleaming metal and pulsing energy weapons. Billy's hands tightened on the controls as they crossed the point of no return. "Now," he shouted. The strike force surged forward, slipping past the initial defensive screen. Yataran ships pivoted in confusion, caught off guard by the audacious attack. Billy's fighter dodged and weaved through a hail of plasma fire. He watched as human and alien pilots executed complex maneuvers in perfect synchronization, their countless hours of training paying off. They penetrated deep into the heart of the Yataran fleet. Billy's targeting computer locked onto a massive command ship. "EMP armed," he announced. "Fire!" A wave of electromagnetic energy erupted from the strike force, washing over the Yataran vessels. Lights flickered and died across the enemy fleet as systems crashed. For a moment, Victory seemed within reach. Then the Yatarans rallied. "Evasive action!" Billy yelled as a storm of missiles streaked towards them. Explosions blossomed in the void. Billy watched helplessly as Allied fighters were torn apart, their pilots' screams cut short by static. "Fall back," he ordered, his voice hoarse. "Get clear of their firing range." The battered strike force limped home, leaving a trail of debris in their wake. They'd bought Earth precious time, but at a terrible cost. As they approached the planetary defense grid, Billy looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, an even greater threat was coming. He could only hope they'd be ready when it arrived. Billy Russell stood on the bridge of the Human Resistance flagship, his eyes fixed on the tactical hologram. The vast expanse of space around Earth swarmed with ships, human, alien allies, and the looming Yataran armada. "All squadrons, this is Russell. Engage on my mark." Billy's voice crackled over the comms. He glanced at Grak, the grizzled alien warrior hunched over a weapons console. "Ready?" Grak's gravelly voice rumbled in response. "Born ready, human." "Mark!" The void exploded into chaos. Particle beams lanced across space. Antimatter warheads detonated in silent flashes, and exotic energy weapons Billy had never seen before lit up the darkness. Earth's planetary shields, bolstered by Xyloth's reverse-engineered Yataran tech, flared as debris from obliterated enemy fighters pelted them. "First wave down," an operator called out. "Yataran corvettes breaking formation." Billy allowed himself a small nod of satisfaction, but it was short-lived. The massive Yataran command ships surged forward, their weapons blazing. Capital railguns the size of skyscrapers opened fire, each shot powerful enough to level a city. Tractor beams lashed out, catching resistance fighters and crushing them like insects. "Evasive maneuvers," Billy barked. He watched helplessly as Allied squadrons scattered, narrowly avoiding the deadly beams. The lunar surface erupted in plumes of dust and rock as stray shots gouged craters across its face. Xyloth's voice chirped over the comm. "Billy, algorithm deployed, planetary batteries charging, now!" Suddenly, Earth itself seemed to come alive. Massive cannons, hidden in mountain ranges and ocean trenches, fired in perfect synchronization. The barrage slammed into the Yataran behemoths from multiple angles, their shields buckling under the assault. "It's working," Grak growled, baring his alien teeth in a fierce grin. Billy leaned forward, his heart pounding. "All fighters, concentrate fire on their weak points. Hit them where the shields are failing." He watched as Allied squadrons dove towards the crippled Yataran ships, their weapons blazing. One by one, the massive alien vessels began to fall, their hulls breached and reactors destabilizing. They plummeted towards Earth, breaking apart in storms of fire and radiation. "We've broken their line," someone shouted. Billy nodded grimly. "Execute flanking maneuver. Cut off their retreat." The resistance fleet moved with practiced precision, encircling the remaining Yataran forces. Caught between hammer and anvil, the alien ships began to fall apart under concentrated fire. Just as victory seemed certain, alarms blared across the bridge. A massive Yataran vessel, easily twice the size of their flagship, had slipped through their defenses. "Interdictor!" Grak snarled. "It's generating a gravity well!" Billy watched in horror as Allied ships were pulled off course, drawn inexorably towards the Yataran monster. Grak led a counterattack, but their weapons couldn't penetrate its shielding. "We need to take that thing out," Billy muttered. His eyes fell on a console displaying captured Yataran tech. A crazy idea formed. "Xyloth, can we use their teleportation system?" The alien's eyes widened. "It's untested, but yes, theoretically." "Do it," Billy ordered. "Teleport us inside their shields." Moments later, reality itself seemed to twist. Billy's stomach lurched as the flagship vanished and reappeared with a thunderous boom. They materialized inside the Yataran ship's shields, the sudden displacement of air ripping through both vessels. Alarms screamed as atmosphere vented into space. Billy stumbled, grabbing a railing for support. Xyloth, get that warp core rig to blow. Everyone else with me. They fought their way through the alien ship's corridors, Billy and his team providing covering fire as Xyloth worked feverishly to overload the warp core. Yadarin crew members swarmed towards them, forced into hand-to-hand combat in the confined space. "It's done!" Xyloth screeched. "We have minutes!" "Fall back!" Billy shouted. They retreated to their ship, sealing the airlock just as the first explosions rocked the Yadarin vessel. They barely made it clear before the interdictor erupted in a cataclysmic fireball, the twisted remains of both ships tumbling away from each other. In the aftermath, Billy stood on the bridge of a hastily commandeered resistance cruiser. The space around Earth was a graveyard of shattered ships and floating debris. Search and rescue teams combed the wreckage, looking for survivors. Grak approached, his alien features unreadable. Without a word, he extended his hand. Billy clasped it firmly, a gesture that bridged the gap between their species. "We did it," Billy said softly. Grak nodded. "For now." The comm system crackled to life. Vox's voice came through, tense and worried. "Billy, we have a problem. The battle's electromagnetic interference. We've lost track of the transdimensional signatures. They could be anywhere." Billy's blood ran cold. He looked out at the stars, knowing that somewhere out there, an even greater threat was lurking. The Yadarins had been defeated, but at what cost? And what horrors awaited them in the void? He squared his shoulders, facing his mixed crew of humans and aliens. They were battered, exhausted, but unbroken. Whatever came next, they would face it together. "All right," Billy said, his voice steady. "Let's get to work. We've got a universe to save." The battered remnants of the human resistance fleet limped back to Earth, their hulls scorched and pitted. Billy Russell stood in the makeshift command center, his uniform stained with sweat and grime. He barked orders as medics rushed past with stretchers. "Get those wounded to triage immediately. I want a full inventory of our remaining ships and weapons within the hour." A junior officer approached, datapad in hand. "Sir, we've got multiple hull breaches on decks 3 through 7. Engineering teams are sealing them now." Billy nodded, his eyes scanning the tactical displays. "What about our perimeter defenses?" "We're setting up energy barriers and missile pods around key installations," the officer reported. "But our resources are stretched thin." As Billy coordinated the frantic efforts to secure their hard-won victory, a flashing alert caught his attention. He tapped the screen, revealing grainy footage from a reconnaissance drone. "Xyloth, what am I looking at?" Billy called out. The alien rushed over, its multiple eyes focusing on the display. "Yadarin ships, sir. A significant carrier group in the outer asteroid belt." Billy's lips pursed. "They're regrouping for another attack." He studied the footage, watching Yadarin crews scurrying across their vessels' hulls, welding new armor plates and loading massive energy cannons. "We can't let them strike first," Billy muttered. He turned to his assembled staff. "I'm initiating Operation Thunderbolt. We hit them hard and fast before they can fully rearm." Grak stepped forward, his massive form casting a shadow over the tactical table. "My warriors stand ready, Russell. Point us at the enemy." Billy nodded, outlining his daring plan. "Two-pronged assault. Grak, you'll lead the first wave. Hit-and-run tactics using micro-jumps. Soften them up for us." The alien bared his teeth in a fierce grin. "Consider it done?" "I'll lead the second wave personally," Billy continued. "We'll board their command ships and take them out from the inside." Xyloth chittered nervously. "The risk is extreme, Billy. If we fail—" "We won't," Billy cut him off, "because we can't afford to. Let's move." The next hours passed in a blur of preparations. Billy strapped himself into the command chair of their flagship, Xyloth at the helm. "All units, this is Russell," he broadcast. "Execute Operation Thunderbolt, now." Space itself seemed to ripple as Grak's strike force vanished, only to reappear an instant later within the Yadarin fleet's perimeter. Antimatter warheads streaked from their ships, detonating in blinding flashes that overwhelmed sensors. Before the Yadarins could respond, Grak's forces jumped away, only to strike again from a different vector. The hit-and-run attacks continued relentlessly, punching holes in the alien defenses. "That's our cue," Billy said grimly. "All boarding teams, prepare for micro-jump." Reality twisted, and suddenly they were there, materializing directly above the Yadarin flagship's bridge. Cutting beams sliced through the hull, and armored Marines poured through the breach. Billy led the charge, his rifle spitting tungsten flechettes that shredded Yadarin crew members before they could raise shields. The close quarters erupted into chaos as both sides grappled in the artificial gravity. A stray shot ruptured a bulkhead, and Billy felt the sickening lurch of explosive decompression. He grabbed a handhold, watching helplessly as friend and foe alike were sucked into the void. Fighting his way through the madness, Billy finally reached the command bridge. There, amid smoking consoles and flickering displays, stood the Yadarin commander, Iraxis. The alien towered over Billy, its chitinous armor gleaming. With a roar, it charged, razor-sharp claws slashing through the air. Billy ducked and weaved, feeling the wind of each near miss. He emptied his rifle into Iraxis's chest, but the rounds merely sparked off the alien's carapace. Iraxis's next swipe caught Billy across the ribs, drawing blood. The human stumbled, his back against a shattered view screen. As the Yadarin loomed over him for the killing blow, Billy's hand closed around a jagged shard of transparent metal. With a desperate lunge, he drove the makeshift blade deep into a gap in Iraxis's armor. The alien howled in pain and fury, but Billy pressed his advantage. He tackled Iraxis to the ground, wrestling his prized combat knife from its sheath. Straddling the wounded Yadarin, Billy pressed the blade against its throat. "Order your forces to stand down," he snarled. "Now!" Iraxis gurgled, dark ichor oozing from its wounds, but it complied, activating the ship-wide broadcast system. "This is Commander Iraxis," it croaked. "All Yadarin forces, surrender immediately. Resistance is futile." As the order echoed across the conquered vessels, Xyloth burst onto the bridge. "Billy, we have a problem!" The alien's eyes were wide with fear as it gestured to a sensor display. "The transdimensional vanguard! It's here!" Billy watched in horror as the outer warning stations winked out of existence one by one. "What the hell are we dealing with?" he demanded. Iraxis laughed bitterly. "Your doom, human. They consume everything in their path. Your precious Earth will be nothing but fuel for their engines of reality." Before Billy could respond, a series of explosions rocked the ship. Alarms blared as Xyloth checked the readings. "Proximity charges," the alien screeched. "They've rigged the entire fleet to self-destruct." Billy's blood ran cold as he realized the magnitude of the Yadarin treachery. "Evacuate! Now!" He sprinted for the nearest shuttle bay, Xyloth hot on his heels. They barely made it aboard as Grak's voice crackled over the comm. "Russell, we're clear of the blast zone. Where are you?" Billy's fingers flew over the controls, bringing the shuttle's engines online. "We're coming in hot. Prepare for immediate extraction." The shuttle rocketed away from the doomed Yadarin fleet, but it wasn't fast enough. The shockwave hit them like a hammer, tearing through shields and hull plating alike. Billy felt a searing pain as shrapnel tore into his side. He fought to stay conscious as the shuttle broke apart around them. Through blurring vision, he saw Grak's massive form appear. The alien warrior grabbed Billy, dragging him towards an escape pod. "Hold on, you stubborn bastard," Grak growled. As they sealed themselves inside the pod, Billy caught one last glimpse of the carnage outside. The very fabric of space seemed to tear apart as the Yadarin self-destruct sequence reached its cataclysmic finale. Then everything went dark, and Billy knew no more. The escape pod shuddered violently as Grak wrenched the controls, narrowly avoiding a hail of shrapnel from the exploding Yadarin fleet. Billy slumped against the bulkhead, blood seeping from the jagged gash in his side. The pod's interior flickered with red emergency lighting as alarms blared. "Structural integrity at 18%, the computer droned. "Life support failing." Grak's massive fingers danced across the control panel. "Stay with me, Russell." he growled, his alien eyes fixed on the rapidly approaching vortex of energy. Billy's vision swam, the pain in his side a dull throb. Through the pod's viewport, he watched in horror as entire asteroids were torn apart, reduced to cosmic dust in seconds. The transdimensional threat loomed before them, a writhing mass of impossible geometries and screaming light. "It's beautiful," Billy mumbled, his thoughts growing hazy. The pod's sensors crackled with static as they tracked the entity's growth. Grax snarled, reading the data. "It's consuming everything. Neptune, gone. Uranus, gone." Billy tried to focus, fighting against the encroaching darkness. He saw Grax's hands moving with desperate speed, rerouting power and plotting a new course. What are you doing?" Billy managed to ask. Grax's voice was grim. "The only thing we can. We're going in." The alien warrior banged his hand down on the ignition. The pod's engines flared to life, a last desperate burst of power driving them straight towards the heart of the cosmic nightmare. Billy felt a scream building in his throat as they crossed the threshold. Reality itself seemed to tear apart around them. Colors he'd never seen before assaulted his senses. Impossible shapes formed and dissolved in instants. And then silence. Billy's mind reeled as he tried to process what he was seeing. They floated in a void unlike anything he'd ever experienced. Entire universes seemed to blink in and out of existence around them. Mathematical constructs of pure energy drifted by, their complexity beyond human comprehension. Time lost all meaning. Billy felt as if he was simultaneously experiencing an eternity and a single moment. Through it all, a singular point of light pulsed in the distance, a beacon of order in the chaos. With the last of his strength, Billy reached for the controls. His fingers left trails of blood as he adjusted their trajectory, aiming the crippled pod directly at the nexus of light. Grax's thoughts echoed in Billy's mind, a final battle cry. "For freedom!" The pod streaked towards its target, a tiny speck of defiance against the vastness of creation. As they neared the impact point, Billy closed his eyes. There was a flash of light brighter than 1,000 suns. Billy felt his body dissolve, his consciousness expanding outward in all directions. He was everywhere and nowhere, witness to the birth and death of countless realities. And then, as suddenly as it began, it was over. Back in normal space, the transdimensional threat imploded. Waves of energy rippled outward, erasing the horrors that had threatened to consume all of existence. On Earth, battered survivors looked up at the sky in awe as the cosmic storm dissipated, leaving behind only a faint smear of exotic radiation. In that moment, as the dust settled on a changed universe, humanity stood tall. They had faced the unimaginable and emerged victorious, forever altering the course of cosmic history. The acrid stench of burning ozone filled the air as Vox's Accipiter fighter touched down on the cracked tarmac of what was once New Beijing spaceport. Debris crunched under his feet as he disembarked, his multiple eyes scanning the desolate landscape. The skeletal remains of shattered skyscrapers jutted into a sky choked with ash and radioactive particulates. Vox clicked his mandibles, activating his comm unit. "This is Supreme Commander Vox. I've secured the time vault. Rendezvous at grid coordinates 3742. Static crackled for several seconds before a human voice responded. "Copy that, Commander. We're inbound with the containment unit." As Vox waited, he studied the vault's scorched exterior. Its metamaterials had held, preserving the precious cargo within against forces that had torn apart reality itself. He ran a clawed hand over its surface, marveling at human ingenuity. A battered transport rumbled into view, its hull pockmarked with plasma burns. Dr. Alara Chen, her face gaunt from months of deprivation, climbed out and approached Vox. "Is it intact?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Vox nodded. "Preliminary scans show minimal degradation. We need to get it to a secure facility immediately." As they loaded the vault onto the transport, the ground trembled. In the distance, a pillar of eerie light erupted from the ruins, twisting in impossible geometries. "Transdimensional aftershock," Vox growled. "Move!" They sped through the devastated cityscape, dodging toppled buildings and fissures that yawned in the earth. The transport's sensors blared warnings as pockets of lethal radiation flared around them. Finally, they reached the underground bunker that now served as humanity's last bastion of technology. Teams of haggard scientists swarmed the vault as it was lowered into a shielded chamber. Dr. Chen's fingers flew over a control panel. "Initiating containment protocols, now!" With a hiss of hydraulics, the vault's seals disengaged. As its contents were revealed, a collective gasp echoed through the chamber. Row upon row of cryogenic pods gleamed in the sterile light, each containing the genetic legacy of Earth's once vibrant biosphere. Vox's attention was drawn to a singular pod at the center. Within it floated a viable human embryo, Billy Russell's final gift to his species. Dr. Chen's eyes welled with tears. "It's more than we dared hope for. With this, we can rebuild." Vox placed a reassuring claw on her shoulder. "Then we must waste no time. Humanity's enemies still lurk in the shadows between stars." As if to punctuate his words, alarms blared throughout the facility. A technician shouted from a nearby console. "Multiple contacts detected in the Kuiper Belt. Yadarin energy signatures." Vox's eyes narrowed. "So it begins anew. Sound general quarters. All personnel to battle stations." He turned to Dr. Chen, his voice resolute. "Secure the vault. What we do now, we do for Billy Russell and all who fell so that life might endure." As klaxons wailed and personnel scrambled to action stations, Vox strode toward the command center. The war for survival raged on, but now humanity had been given a precious chance at rebirth. They would not squander it. The acrid stench of burning ozone filled Vox's nostrils as he surveyed the devastation from the underground command center. Screens flickered with static, displaying the incoming Yadarin armada. Each blip represented thousands of warships, their numbers beyond comprehension. "Sir, we've lost contact with Outpost Gamma," a young human technician reported, his voice cracking. "That's the third one this hour." Vox's mandibles clicked in frustration. He turned to Dr. Chen, who stood pale-faced beside him. "How many made it to the vault?" "Not enough," she whispered, her eyes hollow. "We're down to less than 1,000 viable embryos." A deafening explosion rocked the complex, sending dust cascading from the ceiling. Alarms blared as red emergency lights bathed the room in an eerie glow. "They've breached the outer defenses," someone shouted. Vox's claws flew over the control panel, bringing up a tactical display. The Yadarin ships swarmed like angry insects, raining death from above. He watched in horror as entire continents were engulfed in flames. "We can't hold them," Vox growled. "Not like this." He turned to face the ragtag group of survivors, humans and aliens alike, united in their desperation. "We go to ground. Now." Hours stretched into days, then weeks, then years. The resistance became a shadow, striking from hidden tunnels and long-forgotten bunkers. Vox led countless raids, his once pristine exoskeleton now scarred and pitted. In a makeshift war room deep beneath the ruins of what was once called Chicago, Vox pored over intelligence reports. Each one brought worse news than the last. "Another cell wiped out in Australia," he muttered, tossing the data pad aside. "That's the third this month." A human fighter, her face gaunt from years of malnutrition, spoke up. "We can't keep this up, Vox. We're dying by inches." Before he could respond, a klaxon sounded. A grimy screen flickered to life, displaying an incoming transmission. Vox's heart sank as he recognized the twisted visage of Supreme Omagor Parthaxis. "Attention, vermin," the Yadarin leader sneered. "Your pitiful resistance ends now. Surrender, and I may grant you the mercy of a swift death." Vox cut the transmission, his mind racing. He knew they were outgunned, outmanned, and rapidly running out of options. But as his gaze fell upon a faded photo of Billy Russell, an idea began to form. "Get me to the vault," he ordered. "I need to see Billy's logs." Hours later, Vox emerged from the vault's archive room, his eyes blazing with newfound purpose. He gathered the last remnants of the resistance, outlining a plan so audacious it bordered on madness. "It's suicide," one of the alien fighters protested. "Perhaps," Vox conceded, "but it's our only chance." As the ragtag army prepared for their final assault, Vox allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. He thought of Billy, of Earth, of all they had lost. With grim perseverance, he checked his weapons one last time. "For Billy," he whispered, "for all of us." The diversionary attack began at dawn. Across the globe, resistance cells launched simultaneous assaults on Yadaran strongholds. It was chaos, pure and unrelenting. Vox led the infiltration team, slipping through the cracks in the Yadaran defenses. They fought their way through twisting corridors, every step bringing them closer to their target. As they reached the cathedral's central chamber, alarms blared. Parthaxis's voice boomed through hidden speakers. "Did you think I wouldn't see through your pathetic ruse?" Yadaran troops poured in from all sides. Vox's team fought with desperate ferocity, but they were overwhelmed. One by one, they fell. With his last ounce of strength, Vox lunged for the control panel. His claws smashed into the delicate circuitry, overloading the hyperspatial manifold. A blinding light engulfed him as the fabric of space-time itself began to tear. The last thing Vox saw before consciousness faded was the look of utter horror on Parthaxis's face as reality itself turned against the Yadaran fleet. In the aftermath, as the dust settled on a shattered world, a lone comm station sparked to life. Its message pulsed outward, a testament to those who had fallen and a warning to any who might follow in the Yadaran's footsteps.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.